We're gonna make some chicken and waffles. These are all taken from recipes which I'll share in the description box that I've sort of Frankensteined into my own deal, but are pretty easy to follow. And I hope that you maybe will make this sometime too. It's not as scary as it sounds, even for someone who has a lot of like around hot oil. You can do it. We can do it. First step in preparation, I have frozen and unfrozen and frozen and unfrozen and frozen and unfrozen this tofu. There is science that happens. I do not know it, but it exists, and somehow it makes it just chickenier. It's very, I don't want to say spongy because that sounds disgusting, but it's sort of spongy. It more easily soaks up marinade, and it just texturally matches chicken more, and it's super easy to do. So I usually just keep tofu in the freezer and then pull it in and out when I remember, so that it's prepped and ready for whenever I want to make this. I've done lots of variations on this recipe. I've done like a really sweet, sort of like cinnamony, warming, spicesy, mapley waffle with the chicken. I've done a savory waffle that was sort of like ranch flavored, which sounds truly foul, but it's good. It was really good. Today, we're just doing a really classic, lot of noise. We're doing a really classic waffle, and I'm gonna say like a little bit of a spicier chicken, maybe. Let's get a little wild. So if you were smarter than me, you probably would have already pressed this quite well. The cool thing, slash maybe the disgusting, the disgusting thing is that it presses in like a hot sec. It really comes together quickly because it has that texture. Oh, I hope that this is visible in my other camera. Yeah, so don't really need to press it. Oh my God. Okay, well, it's the end of that towel. Also, first of all, what the hell am I thinking? Oh, the struggle. That's me being born out of my apron. So I always cook with an apron and just ruin that instead of my clothes. Thank you to my friend who made me this wonderful apron that says the Aristaraunt. Get it? Arista. Restaurant. It is clean. I know, but it is clean. So that's on. Taking off my rings. My hands are clean. We are gonna just chunk this tofu up. So I've done this larger size chunks, like sort of like giganto boys. It's not as good. You want the little crispy little nuggets. Like I would say that's sort of a perfect size. And I wonder if you can see, I can't really see shit. The recipe that I use calls for 2 blocks of tofu, and it's a really tricky one because it tastes like chicken but lighter kind of, and so you don't realize how much tofu you're eating. I would say regularly I probably couldn't eat 2 full blocks of tofu, although I have halved the recipe. I have halved it multiple times and never had a problem. Can you? How do the beauty gurus do it? Oh, they go like this or something? So we're breaking this into evenish chunks. It doesn't have to be perfect because it's getting fried, so we can pick them out at different times. And you want to avoid doing what I'm doing, which is breaking it up like this, because this ends up being sort of wasted. It's really hard to get that cooked properly. Now that I've squunched it a bit, we can prep marinade. 2 cups of a non-dairy milk. I usually opt for oat. I was on farm for me. I usually opt for oat. This soy, Natura, the unsweetened soy, doesn't need to be refrigerated, it's shelf stable. It's often on sale. And apparently, for a lot of vegan baking, this is not this, but other things. The protein in milk is helpful. Soy actually has a higher amount of protein than oat milk, supposedly. Again, I'm not a scientist. But we're gonna add 2 cups of this unsweetened soy. This is one of these, like, is it vegan? Yeah. There's no may contain. There's natural flavor, and I have never followed up on it. It is the Frank's buffalo wing sauce, and it's real good. So I'm gonna use about a tablespoon of that. Okay, about a tablespoon, give me a break. But I really like this because it's like, just like hot wings. 2 teaspoons of lemon juice. Another great hack. When you live in the woods and you can't run out to the grocery store, and or it's a global pandemic and you can't run out to the grocery store, almost always you can substitute cider vinegar for lemon. I've never had it make something gross. Would I advise you make like an apple cider poppy seed loaf instead of a lemon loaf? Certainly not. 2 teaspoons of lemon juice, aka apple cider vinegar. 1, 2. I've probably made this recipe 7 or 8 times. I still follow along and I still measure, and that's because I am an unreliable source, especially when it comes to salt. I grew up in a Mennonite household where you don't use salt at all, 0 salt, and so I measure my salt every time because I genuinely have no sense of how much salt something needs. So we've got our soy milk. No, it's not that, it's just soy milk. We got our unsweetened soy milk. We have our lemon juice. That's where that was. We have our hot sauce, 1 teaspoon. 1 teaspoon of regular salt. I'm gonna add celery salt. Why? I don't know. Here's where I like to get a little wicked wild. I like to add lots of things to the marinade because that's ultimately what our chicken is gonna taste like. So pepper, nutritional yeast. It's really tricky. Sometimes if you use nutritional yeast in something, it just straight up tastes like nutritional yeast, and it's not great. However, I find that if you use nutritional yeast in a wet recipe, so if you're putting it into something wet, it sort of dissolves in a way that makes it no longer just taste like straight up nutritional yeast, and that is not revolutionary. If you put it into a liquid and it dissolves, it tastes less like when it's like this. It's a good substitute for like, not animal fat, but like kind of animal fat. I use it obviously in like a vegan cheese, but it has a like, and that's what we want. Have not ever added this before. This is a vegan chicken bouillon. It's very strong, so I'm not gonna add a lot of it, just like a bloop. And maybe it will be horrible, and then you'll never trust me again. Give that a little whiskey roux. Make as much sound as humanly possible. Done. Done. Okay. All that tofu that we chunked up, give it one last sort of squeeze. It's going to marinate, just like a traditional protein would. Maybe you can see the texture of the chicken a bit more now. How many times? 100 times. Tofu confetti over here. Yeah, that straight up smells like chicken. So it's gonna soak in this for about half an hour. I'm gonna turn it occasionally just to make sure that everything's getting real good and juiced. That tofu, which has been frozen, unfrozen, doodle-doo, ends up absorbing a lot of it. So it ends up being pretty flavorful, hopefully. This is strictly a clean as you go kitchen. Okay, these peanut butter balls. Remember? Unless you were deathly allergic to peanut butter. Sorry. Remember when you were small and there would be parties and people would bring like trays of baking? And some genius would always bring these. It's literally peanut butter, butter, icing, sugar. Okay, stop talking. They're so good. I'm gonna put them away. This is not what we're making. Waffle time. Sorry. Whew. Okay, waffles. 2 cups of milk. Well, oh, look at us. We already have that all set up here. It's a 2 cup of milk kind of ding dong day. There you go. Have it. Yeah, I fricked it up. I'm not inspired. A full spoon of cornstarch. This boy. Great, starch of the corn. The starch I was referring to is of the corn. We're gonna mix it with this buddy. Do a little tinge more. We're gonna mix that. We're gonna use a fork to vigorously mix about half the milk with the cornstarch until fully dissolved. I'm gonna splash my face. Vigorously, sir. I will spend this entire video looking at myself in the camera instead of looking at you. That's vigorous stuff. Let's add this, like we were supposed to. And then I think what we're doing is making buttermilk. So we've got our cornstarchy time. So really thick buttermilk. That sounds gross. We're gonna add a tablespoon of ACV to this. And we're gonna like just let it hang out. Just for a little bit. Yeah, just chill out, man. It would be fair to assume that every moment that I'm not actively doing something, I'm eating these peanut butter balls. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Need 2 cups of it. Flour is so sneaky. I tend now to use the weight, especially for things like bread, but you don't want to scoop a thing of flour like that, because that's really packed down and it gets so fluffy. So I kind of zhuzh it. What I do is make the most mess humanly possible. So I zhuzh it, so it's all fluffered, and then, okay, that's still too. You can feel it by the weight. Okay, this is not ideal. My flour bin is not usually this full. A cuparoo. So I did a floof of it. And a swoop of it. Just a floof. You know, the classic move. A tablespoon of baking powder. Oh, there's flour literally everywhere. A tablespoon feels like a lot, but well, have it. Have a whole one. Some salt. Just half a teaspoon. Oh, there is just flour everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. This is why when people ask me about gluten-free baking, I just say no. Sugar, 3 tablespoons. All right, let's do it. 1, 2, 3. A little nutmeg. I know I said we were gonna do a plain waffle, but this is just better. Make a well in the center. Sure, let's do it. Now we're gonna add our buttermilk, which as you can see, it looks truly foul. Oh, it's so glooped. Along with water, oil, and vanilla. We're gonna need some oil, and it's gonna be in the amount of 2 tablespoons. You could totally use coconut oil, I mean even olive oil, but for cost-effective purposes, canola works totally fine. Totally. 1/3 cup of water, and apparently some vanilla. Vanilla is perhaps second only to Tupperware the most valuable commodity in my home. I ordered more than $100 worth of vanilla from the internet that I'm still waiting for, which means that in the meantime, we get to have the extraordinarily good vanilla bean. I fricked up! And liquid smoke. I forgot so many things. I'm wild. This feels very fondly. Well, let's just lean into it, right? Now we need to make the flour dredge. We have a pretty limited number of bowls because I broke them all. Let's just do like a lot of pepper. A lot. Salt. How much of it? Some? Let's add some of it. 2 teaspoons. I only have a 1/4 teaspoon, so this is just the rest of the video. It's just gonna be me doing this. Oh, paprika? Let's do it. Do some cayenne, just for the heck of it. Some onion powder. That smells pretty good. Flour. Again, floosh and swoop. Floof and swoosh. Floof and swoop. I can't even remember my own stupid thing. 3. If you don't say it out loud, it just doesn't count. Whenever you feel like you've added enough salt and pepper, add so much more. Last time I made the mistake of adding the pickle juice to that sort of like chicken brine, and then I made the dredge also quite salty, and it was too much. Yeah, tastes pretty great. I got it for Christmas. It's a waffle maker that stands upright, and I've never used it before, so this promises to be great. Lid on the edge. And we're going to try to do these things simultaneously. Are we? Are we? We're not. No, we're not. We're gonna live safe. I don't know if it talks to you and says, hello, it is done, or like beep or something. She's hungry. I need to remove all of our tofu babies from this marinade because we're actually going to be using it as a dredge. So this smells briny and like a little smoky. Wet it and dredge it. Just keeping those warm in the oven. Yeah, I'm gonna wait a bit. But I can do some prepping in the meantime. So wet, dredge, wet, dredge. Those crackly sounds. Yeah. Is that a great temp for the amount of chicken that's in there? We got a sizzle going, but like it's not burning. It's gonna be hot on the inside. And then from now on, I'm gonna just be swapping them out as they cook. So as soon as one's ready, I'll put another one in, which is why it's nice to have stuff prepped. I like them pretty golden brown, so I'm not being shy about how long I'm cooking them. If you were more organized than me, you could be keeping like a wet cloth here. From the dredge, your fingers are gonna get all gummy, and you don't want that over and over again. Try and get as much oil off there as we can. I've used a smaller pot here. It has a pretty high top to it. It helps with like mitigating some of the danger around using hot. Woo! Now it's getting to that temperature where it's almost burning. So I'm just being really cautious. It's so good! No oil. I love me oil, but I use a lot. I love me oil. That's unfortunate. I haven't found a good hack for this, so if you have one, I do kind of end up getting lots of little crumbles at the end. Like this size is great, but something like this is really hard. Pretty good. I'm actually someone who has a pretty significant amount of anxiety around using hot oil. I'm gonna tell you a story. But once I tell you it, you can't unknow it. So I'll tell you to like skip ahead to X amount of minutes. If you're not delighted by horrifying medical issues, don't listen. My manager in this restaurant told me about a staff member that had been cleaning the grills. So like in a restaurant you have like flat top, which is kind of like a big frying pan basically, or a big like stove. So everything was turned off on the stove, and this employee was cleaning the grills, which is like how the air gets vented out. So he was standing on the flat top, like kind of if I had been standing on this, which I'm not gonna do for the reason that you're about to find out. And cleaning the grills up there, and he slipped, and he fell, and he cooked his foot. He cooked his foot in the deep fryer. He cooked it. He cooked his own foot. His foot was cooked. He cooked it in the deep fryer. So he cooked? He cooked his foot. Yeah. Obviously, we're not talking crispy, but it cooked. It cooked. 8 years later, I still can't use oil, hot oil, without thinking about it. And so I'm really vigilant. I use a high top pan. I use plastic tongs like I should never do. But they're pretty sturdy. I usually kick the cats out. We have 3. And having them underfoot when I'm dealing with hot oil really stresses me out. So I usually kick them out. See, this is when it starts to get like this just, I'm just impressed with myself. Can you see that? Take that. It just tastes like golden-y. It's so good. Put a little marge on there. I'm gonna throw some fresh chicken on it. Classic syrup. You can also do hot sauce on top of this. Like, minus some bite mark. Can you see that? Oh! Can you see inside my pantry? Thank goodness you cannot. I have my little friend, who I apparently don't have anymore. I got my waffle. I don't know how to eat food anymore. And there's cats fighting in the background. Perfect. It's so good. It's so good. Crispy. I mean, it's really good. The waffle is like crunchy and sweet. The chicken is like, it's like briny and crispy. Crispy. Fuck the waffles, you don't have a waffle maker. Eat these like chicken nuggets. Yum. I hope that you didn't hate this. Thanks. Even if you hated me, maybe you didn't hate this, you know? And you would watch more things. And if you would, you could subscribe. And that would be pretty cool of you.